The second floor of the Rayburn House office building was full of people in the hearing chamber. That's how it generally is when something big is going to happen. People were already on the phone, the media was already live, and people were whispering to each other. No one really knew what to anticipate today. Some were moving papers around while others were adjusting microphones. But Representative Jasmine Crockett sat still and composed. She looked like she had all the time in the world. Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General of Florida, was midway through her opening statement on the other side of the room. She spoke in a calm voice and wore a sharp navy blazer. She was sure of herself and had a lot of experience. But she didn't realize that Jasmine was ready and had a folder full of surprises. For most of the session, Jasmine had been quiet and just listened. People thought she didn't have much to say because of that. They were wrong about that. She didn't even look at her notes when it was eventually her turn to speak. She spoke in a calm and direct way. "Miss Bondi," she began, "were you or were you not at a private meeting with Archer and Wakefield Consulting on March 7th of this year?" Pam blinked. She said, "I'm not sure what meeting you're talking about." Jasmine didn't stop. "You don't remember a meeting at a townhouse on Capitol Hill with Senator Briggs, lobbyist Elaine Fisher, and 2 Archer and Wakefield executives?" Pam moved in her seat. She added, "I go to a lot of meetings for my job as a lawyer." Jasmine said easily, "If that meeting happened, I definitely wasn't lobbying." "So you're saying you didn't advocate for Archer and Wakefield's interests?" Pam said, "There is a legal difference. I didn't try to get anyone to vote for me." Then Jasmine opened her folder and took out 3 printed emails. She read one out loud. "Pam thinks she has Briggs under control. We need to have a draft ready by Monday." It was sent the day after the meeting. Pam looked surprised. "I don't know what that is or how you got it." "It was sent in by an ethics group through public disclosure," Jasmine said. "Feel free to look it over." The room's energy altered all of a sudden. People who worked there gazed skyward. The phones lit up. Pam's lawyer even reached into his suitcase uncomfortably. Jasmine went on to inquire why someone who wasn't registered as a federal lobbyist was going to strategic meetings and being mentioned in documents that talked about political influence. Pam's voice went tight. "This sounds like a play for politics." Jasmine didn't miss a beat. "This isn't a play. This is being responsible." That statement really hit home. Everyone in the room stopped talking. The chairman didn't even speak out. Everyone was looking at Pam now. She crossed her arms and squeezed her lips together. But Jasmine didn't seem haughty. She stayed cool and kept moving. She took out another paper. "You got $18,150 from Archer and Wakefield on April 11th. It says consulting retainer. What were you consulting about?" Pam was about to answer when Jasmine softly cut her off. "And just to make sure, you aren't registered under the Lobbying Disclosure Act, right?" Pam's fingers got tighter. "You're twisting the truth," she said. "I only gave legal advice." Jasmine shrugged her shoulders. "Then this should be easy to fix." But it wasn't simple, and everyone in the room knew it. Jasmine read another email from March 10th in which the company congratulated Pam for laying the groundwork and said she had smoothed things over with Senator Timms. Pam tried to say it was taken out of context, but Jasmine read on. The email told Pam to lead off before the congressman joins, because your voice carries more weight with him. Pam's lawyer moved in to say something, but she waved him off. Pam remarked, "They're lying. I can't tell them how to talk about things." "So now you're saying they lied about how you were involved?" Jasmine inquired. "I'm saying that it's normal for companies to try to make themselves look more important." Jasmine leaned closer, her voice quieter but still clear. "But you never fixed the record. Never told this group that your name was being used. Why?" Pam didn't respond. Finally, the chair spoke out and told Jasmine to stay on subject. "I'm just quoting your own papers," Jasmine said gently. "We're not guessing. We're reading." People in the room started to murmur. Jasmine handed out another paper, a group calendar that showed a regulatory pressure briefing planned for soon before a big proposal was given to lawmakers. It had the words PB on deck written on it. Pam said PB could be anyone. But Jasmine showed Pam Bondi a Zoom invite that had been delivered directly to her email. Her name had just been taken off the company's website, but it was still in the archives, where it said she was a senior legal advisor. Yes, consulting is legal, Jasmine said. But if you're trying to change the minds of lawmakers, that's lobbying, and you need to register with the federal government. You have to follow the Lobbying Disclosure Act. Pam tried to get better. You're making this a witch hunt. Jasmine stayed calm. Then there shouldn't be any smoke, but there is a lot of it. And a trail of emails and payments that reflect a different story. Pam looked over to the chair, maybe expecting he would sit down. He didn't. Jasmine shut her folder. She said, "No more questions for now. But I have the right to keep going after the financial subcommittee is done with their review." The chair kept the session going, although the room was still not normal. Things had changed. Pam had come in with a lot of confidence. But suddenly, everyone who glanced at her had doubts. The quiet gets louder when the replies don't match the queries. Pam Bondi had actual influence before all of this, like the hearings and the emails, not DC strength, power in Florida. She was more than simply a name in Naples. She was well-connected and respected. She didn't go away after she left her job as Florida's Attorney General. In fact, she became even more valuable because everyone still knew her. Jasmine's team had been looking into Pam's past for weeks before the hearing. In Naples, power moves in secret, like over dinners and covert phone calls. There was one name that kept coming up, Archer and Wakefield. The company wasn't showy. There can't be any tall buildings, just a small office close to a golf course. Most of their activity was private, such contracts, infrastructure, defense deals, and political influence. Pam came in at that point. She was a consultant officially, but in an old newsletter, there was a picture of her leading a meeting with the company's founders and a security contractor. The caption indicated she was steering federal outreach strategy. That's lobbying without saying it. There were additional things going on, like luncheons, panels, and private meetings. The words were unclear, but the meaning was plain. Pam was helpful not only because she knew a lot about the law, but also because of her name. She could get doors opened and calls returned. There was one dinner that stood out, the 23rd of February, a policy meeting at the Mediterra Club. Pam's name wasn't on the invitation, but people who were there reported she sat at the head of the table and talked for 20 minutes. One staffer who was there remarked she wasn't there to listen. She was in charge. She even said which lawmakers she would talk to personally next. The quote wound up in Jasmine's folder, written in red ink. Everything was coming together. Pam had connections with senators, former political associations, and now there are emails and money trails that reveal how much power she had. Jasmine hadn't even spoken the whole tale about Naples yet in the hearing room. She was waiting, allowing Pam to fall into her own trap. But when it comes out, and it won't look like confusion. It will look like a strategy. Years in the making. Jasmine didn't need to fight when Pam told Congress she didn't lobby. The facts were already speaking for themselves. From the beginning, Jasmine Crockett knew that dinner at Mediterra would say more than any denial Pam Bondi could provide. Pam had not signed up to be a federal lobbyist, not because she wasn't lobbying, but because the title came with restrictions and people watching over her. Things stayed quiet, private, and easy to govern without the title. But now, things were getting loud. Not in Naples, and not in DC for sure. Jasmine sat at her desk that night after the hearing and reviewed a transcript of an interview. Calculated and comfortable were the two terms that stood out. That's how someone described Bondi's style. And Jasmine knew from experience that people who are both brilliant and comfortable in authority don't quit unless someone tells them to. Bondi didn't think that someone was really watching. The next morning, Bondi showed up to the committee as if nothing had happened. She was dressed in a new suit, spoke in a calmer way, and was accompanied by her lawyer and a new public relations person. They weren't just attempting to win the case, they were also trying to get the public's attention. They wanted the news, not the truth. Jasmine, on the other hand, saw it coming. She knew how people act when things get tough. Some people run. Some fight back with more strength. Bondi took the second path. She changed the plot. Pam remarked, "With all due respect, this committee seems more interested in me than in the real legislative work." She maintained she had followed the law, given legal advice, and served her country in good faith. The room stayed quiet. Jasmine didn't even blink. "Did you or did you not get paid by Archer and Wakefield between January and April?" she said firmly. Pam continued, "I already answered that," keeping her smile tight. "I gave legal advice." Jasmine pushed. "Back, that's legal. And that advice just so happened to fit with the law your client was pushing?" Pam attempted to ignore it. "Coincidence isn't a crime." Representative Huxley from Kansas, who is a friend of Bondi's, jumped in to defend her. "Are we here to look into Miss Bondi's contracts or stick to the agenda?" Jasmine didn't move. With all due respect, if private consulting is being used as a way to get lawmakers to do what you want, that's exactly what we need to stop. Huxley became red. "Accusations don't mean someone is guilty." "No," Jasmine responded, "but papers do." She pushed a new packet across the table. It had records of money and meeting times, all of which showed that Bondi was meeting with congressional offices at the same time that the company was trying to amend the law. The room was quiet again. That afternoon, Bondi's team fought back. A conservative site said the hearing was a smear campaign and dubbed Jasmine a show-off. The story got picked up by cable TV. Some people said Jasmine was only trying to get attention from the cameras, but soon the whole video started to spread online. No comments. Don't holler. Jasmine is just reading emails and answering inquiries in a calm way, and Bondi had trouble with her answers. Some of Pam's habitual supporters even started to feel apprehensive. The emails were authentic. The payments were legitimate, and Bondi hadn't denied them. He had merely sought to explain them away. Jasmine didn't pay attention to the media clamor. She kept her mind on her work. She examined her papers 3 times and stayed late to work with her team. She knew what was going to happen next. When powerful people are trapped, they don't go gently. They use all of their money, media, and power. During a late-night meeting to plan, her chief of staff asked, "How do you want to respond to their attacks?" Jasmine didn't think twice. "Let them come. I don't care as long as we have the receipts." Bondi's situation got worse the next morning. An ex-employee of Archer and Wakefield sent additional emails to an organization that wants to make things more open. These messages were quite dangerous. They didn't just talk about Bondi, they showed her making changes to draft measures, adding bullet points, giving clear directions. That is no longer legal advice. That's lobbying, but without the title, the paperwork, or following the law. Everyone felt the change by the time the group convened again later that week. There were no introductions or small conversation. It was tense during the hearing. Pam was at the same table, but her body language was different. She was worried. Her lawyer moved closer and whispered in her ear. Jasmine was patient. When it was her turn, she leaned into the mic and said, "I'd like to put a transcript of a phone call between Miss Bondi and a director at Archer and Wakefield on the record." The room gasped and looked shocked. Pam quickly turned to her lawyer. "I didn't know my calls were being recorded," she stated. "You weren't," Jasmine said. "But the person you talked to was on a line that a contractor was watching for the federal government. That makes it okay." She recited one phrase from the call: "You need to nudge Callier and Briggs before Friday. Tell them we need that writer to be quiet." Jasmine raised her head. "That was your voice, right?" Pam squirmed. "That quote is not in the right context." "Then tell me what the situation is," Jasmine said. Pam didn't say anything. Jasmine didn't stop. You also said, don't worry, they trust me. I've been helping these guys for years. They know how to return favors. Again, your voice. People in the room began to type more quickly. A reporter went outside to make a call. Jasmine leaned in. The question isn't whether you were a consultant. It's whether you used that job to secretly change laws for your own benefit and never registered as a lobbyist. That's against the law for the federal government. This is a witch hunt, Pam said. Jasmine remarked quietly, you've said that before. But these are your words, your papers, and your meetings. Humbly. You wrote the script if this is a performance. Another agent stepped in and questioned, Miss Bondi, do you deny that the voice on the phone was yours? Pam's lawyer spoke to her again in a low voice. In the end, she said, I don't remember the exact words. That's not a denial, Jasmine said. Pam continued, it could have been my voice, but tone doesn't prove intention. Jasmine didn't back down. Then explain why you want to put secret edits into laws. Be quiet. The hearing went on. There were other things talked about. But the time had come and gone, and everyone knew it. It took only a few minutes for that clip of Jasmine quietly reading the transcript to go viral on social media. It was everywhere by midnight. Cable news played it over and over again. People shared it not because it was loud or spectacular, but because it made sense. And was true. There was no press conference for Jasmine. She didn't tweet about her win. She went back to her office, shut the door, and got back to work. The hearing was done. But the investigation wasn't. By morning, #ThisIsAccountability was the most popular hashtag, and Jasmine said, this isn't theater. This is accountability was heard all around the country. It wasn't showy. It wasn't planned. But it sliced through the noise. And people paid attention. Malik, her communications director, strolled into her district office with a laptop in hand. He said, CNN, MSNBC, CBS, all of them want you live tonight. Jasmine wore a t-shirt and jeans. She hardly looked up. She said, not tonight. He thought about it. Are you sure? They're waiting for you. She smiled a little and continued, if they care now, they'll care tomorrow. He said, you just became a meme. She laughed. Let's hope they care more about what I'm saying than my eyeliner. That night, experts talked about everything she did. Some people disagreed with her tone. Some people didn't like her style. But most people who watched saw something else, a woman who stepped into a place where she wasn't supposed to lead and quietly changed the game. An older man in a small Ohio barbershop saw the film and commented, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. That's how you get things done. The next day, Bondi's team said in a statement that her work was legitimate and the hearing was political. But the room and the whole country had already moved on. Jasmine didn't brag. She looked over more papers. She drew circles around names because she knew something that Bondi didn't. Viral moments don't last, but being responsible does. Someone in the audience stepped up and remarked to Jasmine Crockett, you look like someone who knew her facts and wasn't afraid to say them, even if you were the only one. Jasmine grinned. That's the job, she said. You said what a lot of us have been thinking for a long time, the woman replied. Jasmine realized that one moment wasn't enough. Being accountable isn't just about one good quote. It's a habit, which means you do it every time, no matter who is watching. The media had gone crazy by Friday. There were a lot of news vans outside the Capitol. Analysts, TV hosts, and podcasters were all chatting. It wasn't just one hearing anymore. It had turned into a national controversy. What does it mean to lobby? People were asking huge questions. Who follows the rules while the cameras aren't on? CNN showed a segment called Lobbyist or Consultant and went through each line of the transcript. MSNBC had lawyers stop and think about each time Jasmine quietly stated a fact. Fox News took a different route and called it a political attack, but even some of their guests couldn't explain away the recorded phone call. The facts were too overpowering. Bondi's team wasn't denying much. They just didn't have any new information. Things were getting serious behind the scenes. Bondi's lawyers started collaborating with lawyers from outside the firm. 3 fresh federal filings have her name in them. All of a sudden, Archer and Wakefield's website went down. The reporters was buzzing, but Jasmine didn't say a word. She didn't tweet, publish, or talk to the press. She stayed in her office and focused on one thing, the facts. She called her crew together. Make a list of everything, she advised. Every document, every timestamp, every clip. We don't follow noise, we follow truth. Malik, her communications director, raised a hand. We've gotten offers from big podcasts and late-night shows. Later, she said, we're not making a brand. We're making a case. And that's what set Jasmine apart. She wasn't here to be famous. She was here to show what others were missing. The buzz kept going on across the world. Comedians made light of Bondi's email tag, PB. In one comedy, she tried to explain the rules of lobbying to kindergartners. It was funny, but it showed something real. People were sick of powerful people lurking in plain sight. A civics teacher in Oklahoma showed her high school pupils the video. She informed her students, this is what it means to serve the public. No shouting, no drama, just the truth, given with calm and bravery. Bondi's friends in Congress stopped talking. One person didn't even show up for the next hearing. Then there was the biggest news yet, an official ethics complaint. A watchdog group sent a signed complaint to the House Ethics Committee on Monday. It had calendar logs, payment receipts, and memos from the inside. Jasmine's office had already checked everything. Reporters began to get in touch with people who used to work for Archer and Wakefield. An unnamed insider told the Philadelphia Ledger, we weren't allowed to use the word lobbyist, but we all knew what it meant. Bondi didn't write anything down. She gave them to them. That phrase spread like wildfire. Pam Bondi's reputation fell apart in just a few days. People used to see her as a respected leader, but now they saw her as a symbol of what they thought was Washington's biggest problem, backdoor influence with no paper trail and no consequences. Jasmine still didn't talk to the public. She wrote one phrase at the top of a yellow pad in her notebook. It's not about headlines. It's all about habits. Something unexpected happened that night. There was an email that came in. It wasn't important or showy. It went to a basic campaign inbox, which is normally full of spam. But someone on Jasmine's team opened it and then stopped. Subject: please read if you used to work at A&W. The message was concise and to the point. The person who sent the message said they used to work as a junior analyst at Archer and Wakefield. He alleged that he was directed to get rid of internal memos that talked about Bondi. No, he didn't. He rescued them. Evan Russo was his name. No ties to politics, be quiet, in the middle of the 30s, and he had proof. Jasmine's lawyers acted immediately. They checked the papers. The names, time frames, and file data all matched. And the worst part? A memo that Bondi not only suggested, but also changed. She modified the terms in the draft of a proposed law. She changed require reporting to encourage voluntary action and other terms like that. She even wrote in the margins, this version will fly under the radar. Keep it light. The draft document was almost the same as a real bill that Senator Briggs filed 2 weeks later. It was the last piece. There was no press conference called by Jasmine. She sat alone and read every word very carefully. Every change. Every time stamp. This wasn't careless work. This was someone who assumed no one would look. Evan agreed to talk, but only with limited immunity. They wrote down everything he said and sealed it. He confirmed everything. Bondi was the one who sent the messages. She wasn't just giving advice. She was making policy from behind the scenes. Did someone inside the business push back? A worker inquired. Evan smiled a little. No one wanted to lose their job. Archer and Wakefield, on the other hand, stayed quiet. Their site was still unavailable. Bondi hadn't said anything in days. Jasmine didn't have a party. She knew the last trick: when powerful individuals feel trapped, they fight back. Threats of legal action, making whistleblowers seem bad, anything to make things more complicated. So she kept her mind on the task at hand. Her team sent in a fresh report that included all the papers, interviews, and infractions, with footnotes and timestamps for each one. Malik was behind her when she signed it. "Do you think she'll fight it?" he inquired. "She has to," Jasmine remarked. "What else can she do?" On TV that same night, a legal expert observed, "If even half of this is true, Bondi's career as a consultant is over, and someone might start to wonder if you meant to do something illegal." Jasmine still stayed out of the spotlight. No talking, no spin, just getting ready. Jasmine got there early on the morning. The whistleblower memo was formally put on record. A photographer took a picture of her strolling across the marble hallway. She wasn't smiling, she was just focused. She didn't come to show off. She was there to finish what she had begun. On a wet Thursday, the hearing started off again. There were a lot of reporters in the halls. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Bondi was brought back to answer questions regarding the new papers. She strolled in carefully this time, without a dazzling suit. It was clear that she had read the memo and understood what it meant. Jasmine didn't look up. Even though she had already memorized her notes, she was still highlighting them. Evan Russo watched from a safe place above. People now knew his name. The hearing started. First, Jasmine was identified. She said, "Miss Bondi, you said in your testimony that you had nothing to do with writing policy for Archer and Wakefield. Do you remember saying that?" Pam nodded her head. "Yes, that's right." Jasmine gave the cashier a page. "Then can you tell me why your name is on the document log as the person who wrote draft 3.4 of the memo from March 9th? Pam stopped moving. "Pam Bondi tried to make sense of things. I went over that memo again to make sure it was clear," she added. "That's not the same as making laws." Jasmine Crockett didn't move. "Don't play word games," she said. "You put in terms that were eventually used in Senate Bill 2143. You took out the regulations for compliance and replaced them with wording that is good for business, and you did it when you were working for Archer and Wakefield." "That's right." Pam moved around in her chair. "I was never paid to lobby." "But you were paid," Jasmine remarked, "to sit in strategy sessions that were meant to change the law." Bondi said, "That's a stretch." Jasmine opened another file without saying anything. She said, "This is version 3.5. All of the changes in blue are yours." She pointed and said, "Here, you changed subcontractor reporting from required to voluntary." The room was quiet. No one was saying anything, not even Bondi's past supporters. "Isn't that lobbying?" Jasmine asked in a calm voice. Pam let out a sigh. Nothing was hidden. "Then why didn't you sign up?" Jasmine asked in a harsh voice. "Why did you tell them to take your profile off their site? Why did they just name you an outside consultant after this document became public?" Pam looked at her lawyer. He spoke something in a low voice, but she didn't say anything out loud. Jasmine answered, "We'll take that as a no." The next few minutes were very planned out. Jasmine made a list of when payments, emails, meeting invites, and document revisions will happen. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. The truth was clear on its own. One representative sought to object again, saying the questioning was too harsh. But this time, even the committee chair didn't interrupt. "Let her finish," he murmured in a low voice. At the end, Bondi looked tired. She wasn't fighting back anymore. She was simply trying to stay alive. Jasmine shut the folder. "That's all the questions I have." The committee took a break. No big exit. No last joke. Just quiet. The kind that happens when the facts are too plain to ignore. Pam Bondi went out a side door. She didn't talk to the press. No one saw her leave on camera. Jasmine stayed behind. She went over her notes and talked to the personnel. Dominguez, the representative, walked over. She responded, "That was clean." "It had to be," Jasmine said. "I'm not trying to destroy her. I'm trying to keep my cool." "You did." That afternoon, the committee voted to suggest that Bondi be punished by the government. The vote passed, but just barely, with bipartisan support. The rain had ceased outside. With her crew, Jasmine walked to the curb. Someone gave her a black umbrella, but she didn't open it. She stood still and watched the press vans load away. Malik asked, "Are we doing the press today?" "No," she said. "Let them write about what we did, not what we said." Malik grinned. "That's going to make them crazy." Okay. Jasmine realized that this was no longer just about Pam Bondi. This was meant to send a message. Just because you have access doesn't mean you're safe. The last report came out the next Monday. There were 143 pages. Exact, technical, and no nonsense. Just proof. Proof that is clear and unmistakable. It came to the conclusion that Pam Bondi had lobbied for Archer and Wakefield without registering, which is against federal law. It included cash, emails, calendar invites, and her direct involvement in creating policy language. The committee suggested harsh punishments, like as official sanctions, censure, a referral for a federal probe, and a halt on any future government contracts that involved Bondi. She didn't have a press conference. She didn't say no to anything. Her lawyers secretly submitted a court response saying that she didn't understand what she was supposed to do. But there was no longer a refusal. Jasmine got to her district office in South Dallas that same morning. No pictures. Not a big introduction. Just her, a few staff members, and one small news team from the area. She said she would talk, but not from a podium. Not a big deal. Only her, in the break room. The coffee maker was humming in the background. She put her hands together when the camera started rolling. "I wasn't trying to make history," she remarked. "I was just doing my job." The reporter asked, "How did you keep your cool during those hearings?" "I didn't need to raise my voice," she said. "I knew the truth. And you don't have to act when you know the truth." She stared straight into the camera. "I don't care if you're a former attorney general or a junior staffer. If you're using your job to push your own agenda in secret, I'm going to call you out. That's not how politics works. That's public service." That clip was shown that night. No fancy visuals. No music that makes you feel bad. Just the truth, plain and simple. Back in Washington, people were quick to respond. Few people praised Jasmine. Some people said that the committee was picking on people, but something more important had changed. New codes for personnel were written. Senate staff learned how to be open and honest. Private companies started to double-check their consultants. But for Jasmine, the true moment came later that week. She went to a small community meeting at the gym of a recreation center. Chairs that fold. No news. A man in his late 70s stepped up with a cane in one hand and an oversight report in the other. He said, "I saw it all. Every minute. I observed how you maintained cool while people tried to mess with you. I just want to say thank you, not for the headlines, but for doing what a lot of people wouldn't. For making someone like her pay for what she did behind closed doors." Jasmine nodded. "That means a lot to you." He took a seat. And there came a break. A calm one. A significant one. This everything had felt real in a world full of spin and cacophony. Not just showing that you're responsible, but responsibility that really mattered. Pam Bondi could still have some money. She may still have powerful allies, but the gloss was gone. The doors she used to walk through easily would be tougher to open now. There was a record with her name on it. And what about Jasmine? She didn't make the moment into a brand. She did not write a book. She didn't start a podcast. She just went back to her job, to the hearings, to get together, to be there for the folks that sent her there. And that's why people remembered this story. In a place full of commotion, Justice might sometimes look like a woman who is calm and steady and asks the correct question at the right moment.